What's up guys, it's Endymion, and in today's video I want to speak about the death of the first demigod and the twisted cult that was born from it. This video will of course contain spoilers, and parts of this video will be theoretical in nature, so please keep this in mind. And now let's begin deciphering the story of Godwyn the Golden. Godwyn was the golden son of Queen Marika the Eternal and the first Elden Lord Godfrey. Godwyn was beloved by the masses and was seemingly a pure-born demigod that bore no curses or taints like many of the other demigod children. He was, in a sense, the perfect god. Godwyn's popularity went beyond his subjects, as when the primordial dragons waged a siege on the golden capital of Lendel, Godwyn would quickly respond to the attack and become a dragon slayer. One of his foes was the mighty Fortisax, but instead of their duel ending in bloodshed, Godwyn ended up befriending the powerful dragon instead. The faith incantation known as Honed Bolt states, one of the incantations of the capital's ancient dragon cult. Long ago, Godwyn the Golden defeated the ancient dragon Fortisax and befriended his fallen foe, an event that gave rise to the ancient dragon cult in the capital. The charisma and benevolence of Godwyn was so great that he could even sway the most bloodthirsty of his foes to his side. But this golden child of the gods would soon become the catalyst to a series of events that would result in the downfall of the current age and the kingdoms within it. One dark and gloomy night, Godwyn's stepsister, known as Lunar Princess Ranni, devised a plot to free herself from the machinations of the Greater Will and its influence on the lands between. Ranni would assemble a group of assassins in secret and plot to steal the Rune of Death from Queen Marika's shadow, Malekith the Black Blade. In turn, Ranni would enhance these assassins with the power of death, allowing for her plan to advance. For in order for Ranni to separate herself from her Empyrean body, but retain her spirit, she would need to sacrifice another demigod spirit in return. And her choice was none other than the favored son of Queen Marika, the beautiful and radiant Godwyn the Golden. And thus the assassins would descend on the capital under the veil of night with daggers of death in hand. The weapon, known as Black Knife, states, dagger once belonging to one of the assassins who murdered Godwyn the Golden on the night of the Black Knives. A ritual performed on the oddly misshapen blade imbued it with the power of the stolen Rune of Death. This event would become known as the Night of the Black Knives. Godwyn the Golden would end up being murdered, and his spirit was sacrificed for Ranni to fulfill her destiny. This marked the first known death of a demigod, and Queen Marika, in her despair and madness over the death of her beloved son, would renounce the Greater Will and its lack of intervention, and in retaliation, Marika would shatter the Elden Ring, leading to the downfall of all existence in a war known as the Shattering. We can even learn more about these assassins by looking at the summon ash known as Black Knife Titch, which states, Titch was one of the assassins who, on the night of the plot, imbued her black knife with the Rune of Death and slew Godwyn the Golden. She was the daughter of the Black Knife ringleader Alecto and was killed protecting her mother during their flight from the royal capital. In the wake of Godwyn's death, various armies would rise and fall, and in the ashes of the demigods who tried to claim Queen Marika's power would all end up being left empty-handed. Godwyn's fate would be expanded upon by the talisman known as Prince of Death's pustule, which states, a fetid pustule taken from facial flesh. It is said that this bustle came from the visage of the Prince of Death, he who used to be called Godwyn. As first dead of the demigods, it's said he's buried deep under the capital at the Erdtree's roots. There's two locations where you can actually find evidence of this, the first being the depths of Stormvale Castle. At the bottom of the fortress, you're able to find the malformed face-shaped squid-like being of an aspect of Godwyn. His true body would be even deeper within the Erdtree, but I'll speak about that later on in the video. What's interesting is that the assassins that killed Godwyn were discovered to be revealed by a power known as Ghost Flame. The Ghost Flame torch states, metal torch that burns with cold ghost flame, tool of the fallen hawks who prowl the underground rivers. When the band's last embers were used up in their long search, they began to burn the bones of their fellows, acquiring the cold ghost flame, but sealing their fate as dwellers of the underground for all eternity. This flame could reveal the hidden assassins, which is why if you look closely you'll see that ghost flame torches are placed in the vicinity of Godwyn's presence to protect his corpse even in death from the assassins. Although Ronnie and her assassins would be successful in killing Godwyn, the use of the Rune of Death would imbue Godwyn's body with half of the curse mark of death, which led to Godwyn becoming the first of a group known as those who live in death. Those who live in death are individuals whose spirits couldn't return to the Erdtree, and when Godwyn's body was laid at the foot of the Erdtree, his corrupted corpse would start to infect the roots of the Erdtree, leading to something called Death Root. The Death Root item states, a source that gives rise to those who live in death. On the night of the dire plot, the stolen Rune of Death enabled the first death of a demigod. Later, the Rune of Death spread across the lands between through the underground roots of the Great Tree, sprouting in the form of Death Root. So it seems those tentacle-like things coming out of Godwyn's face-like being in Stormvale were the corrupted roots of Godwyn's curse mark and were now a part of the Erdtree. The undead that would come into contact with this death root would eventually start to worship Godwyn, and he would become known as the Prince of Death. Some prominent figures would try to curse Godwyn's corpse from its death-imbued curse, such as the mighty dragon Fortisax, the very same dragon Godwyn in his golden prime befriended, as well as Godwyn's half-brother Mikola, who I plan to explore in a future video, so subscribe for that. Eventually, this would all lead to Fia, the deathbed companion, who would rise as an important figure amongst those who live in death. As she made it her mission to resurrect Godwyn in his new form as the Prince of Death by combining the two halves of the curse mark to give the full power of death to their beloved prince. If you go through Fia's questline as well as Ronnie's questline, you'll eventually come upon the two halves, and when given to Fia, she can lay with Godwyn's final resting place within Deep Root Depths. This is the true location of Godwyn's corpse, and as you can see, the once favored child of the Golden Order is now a corrupted, almost Bloodborne-esque looking monstrosity laying at the depths of the Erdtree. This is where you can obtain the Mending Rune of the Death Prince, which states, Rune gestated by Fia, the deathbed companion, used to restore the fractured Elden ring when brandished by the Elden Lord. Formed of the two hollow brand half-wheels combined, it will end the principle of life within death into order. The Golden Order was created by confining Destined death. Thus, this new order will be one of death restored. This key item unlocks an alternate ending where the Tarnished is able to use the Mending Rune of the Death Prince and combine it with the Elden Ring in order to usher in what the ending refers to as the Age of the Duskborn. This ending basically states that death has become the prominent force in the lands between, and now death can flow naturally within all living things. Queen Marika, in the beginning of her reign, sealed the Rune of Death so that her and the demigods could reign eternally because the very concept of death was sealed away. However, I'll get more into that in a later video. But for now, if this ending is chosen, then the lands between and the resurrection mechanic you've been using the whole game is now basically gone, and things can pass on back to the Erdtree, god or mortal alike. Godwyn, whether he's remembered as the golden son of the gods or the Prince of Death, was always a very interesting character to me. To have someone who was revered as so holy and loved by the people to become an avatar for the very concept of death is really interesting. He kind of in ways gives me vibes of Griffith from Berserk, but since we know many of From Software's games are heavily influenced by Berserk, this is no surprise really. If anything, Godwyn's story showed the lands between that even gods could die, and his place within the story of Elden Ring is one of the most important pieces to understanding the greater world and its many players that make up Elden Ring's mythology. Whether we eventually face Godwyn in a DLC at some point, I certainly hope so, cause I think there's much more From Software could mine from this character and the mythology surrounding him in a future expansion. But that, my friends, is the story of Godwyn the Golden and his eventual rise as the Prince of Death. So what do you think of this? Did I interpret anything wrong, or do you have anything to add to this video? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for 5,000 plus subscribers on my channel. Seriously, that is amazing. Let me know what else you want me to cover in future videos, and thank you to my amazing patrons as always for their continued support. It means a lot. And I'm Endymion. Thanks for watching. Please consider watching my other Elden Ring lore videos, and I'll be back with another video later on this week. So, I'll see you in the next one.